Hey guys, Luke here on Sean's channel. Today I'm back again with another Dragonmaid deck profile. So the ban list has dropped, so Tidal is back. This is just going to be a refurbishment of the last video, which you guys have all supported so well, so we're very grateful for that. But there's just like an update, just going into the new April 2024 ban list. All Dragon Lures are now limited to one. Dragon Lures have great synergy with Dragonmaids, so without further ado, let's just get straight into the video. This is Dragonmaids with some Dragon Rulers. Let's start things off with Dragonmaid Lorpar. We're going to start off with the big Dragonmaids first, just kind of get them out of the way. Lorpar you don't need to run at one. In fact, I don't run an overly big amount of the bigger Dragonmaid monsters just because I don't feel it's really necessary anymore. Dragonmaid Lorpar is definitely one of the more powerful ones. It is a level 8 wind dragon monster that you most likely bring out from your hand or graveyard off of the effects of one of your smaller Dragonmaid monsters during the start of the battle phase. Lorpar also has some other effects. You can discard this card and target one face-up monster on the field, and then players can activate that target's effect on the field this turn, which can be pretty good interruption if you're going against your opponent if they have set up already. So Lorpar is very, very good for that, but I don't think it's necessary to run any more than one copy in this build. The other bigger Dragonmaid we run is Tinkhec. Tinkhec I actually favor a little bit more over Lorpar. If you want to change any ratios around, maybe up Tinkhec to 2. I just really like Tinkhec for its Collude effect, in the sense that it's a quick effect. You can discard this card and target one Dragonmaid monster you control and it gains 2000 attack until the end of this turn, which is just really, really good. The fact it's a quick effect can like really catch your opponent off guard, especially during the damage step when it's really hard for your opponent to respond with things. So Tinkhec is definitely an essential to run a 1 in this build. I definitely recommend it. Now going into the main event, of course, we run each copy of the Dragon Rulers. We have one Blaster, one Tidal, one Tempest, and one Redox. These cards were absolute menaces when they first appeared in the scene back in 2014, and finally 10 years later, they're all back to one off the ban list. Tidal was the last to come off, and it's just absolutely great to have them all back together. So with all Dragon Rulers, they have the effect that when they're banished, you can add a dragon monster of the same attribute from your deck to your hand, which of course is just really, really good. For example, your Blaster can search your kitchen, your Tempest can search your parlor, your Redox can search your nurse, and your Tidal can search your laundry, which is just really, really good for banish, especially because it's really easy for us to banish one of these guys off of their own effects, or with the help of Gold Sarc, which of course we run one in this deck as well. So each Dragon Ruler has their own sort of unique effect, along with their the ones that they share in common. The ones that they share in common, of course, is the banishing effect that I just after mentioning, but also they have the effect in the hand or in the graveyard that you can banish 2 dragon monsters and or monster with the same attribute as the Dragon Ruler itself in order to special summon it to the field. But not only that, they also have effects that you can discard them with a monster of the same attribute in order to get one of these effects. So Blaster is a pop, Tidal is a foolish burial, Tempest is a search, and Redox is a reborn. So it's really, really good to have one copy of each of these Dragon Rulers. They're really good, they're really fun, and also to have some rank 7s in the extra deck, which is a really, really fun tech option to include in this list. So I definitely recommend run one copy of each of these Dragon Rulers. 3 copies of Chamber is absolutely essential for this build. Chamber is definitely the best Dragonmaid in the whole deck because she is a searcher. So without me having to reiterate every time I bring out a small Dragonmaid, I'll just say the effects that they have all in common is that during the start of battle phase, if they're on the field, you can return to the hand in order to summon one of your bigger Dragonmaids from either the hand or graveyard. So really, really good at tagging each other out for your bigger monsters, which is kind of like the main gimmick of the deck. But then each other smaller Dragonmaid has their own unique effects too. And Chamber's unique effect is that when it's normal or special summoned, you can add one Dragonmaid spell or trap from your deck to the hand. This is really, really good at searching the fusion spell or even Dragonmaid Tidying, which are just really, really good cards to be able to search off of Chamber. So I definitely recommend maximizing the copies of Chamber in this build. 3 copies essential. I run 2 copies of Parlor Dragonmaid. If you want to up this to 3, that's absolutely fine, but honestly, I think Parlor is absolutely fine to run at 2. Parlor is really good. Her unique effects when she's normal or special summoned, you can send one Dragonmaid card from the deck to the graveyard, which is really, really good to point out that it says Dragonmaid card. So not only is this good at dumping one of your bigger Dragonmaids to the graveyard, so when you go in battle phase you can tag Parlor out for it, but also the fact that so you can just send your copy of Dragonmaid Changeover, which is the fusion spell, and the fusion spell has an effect in the graveyard that you can actually bounce a Dragonmaid on the field to the hand and then add Changeover to the hand from the grave, which of course is just really good. 2 copies of Parlor I find to be really good in this deck. I think it's the right ratio to run at, but some people are very adamant to run at 3. I don't necessarily agree with that. 2 copies of Kitchen Dragonmaid. Kitchen is really good. It's not as strong as Parlor, but still has a very good effect. Her effect being on normal or special summon, you can add 1 Dragonmaid monster from your deck to your hand, except for Kitchen Dragonmaid, and then send 1 Dragonmaid monster from your hand to the graveyard. Not as strong. If you want to run 1 copy of Kitchen and maybe 3 copies of Parlor, that might be a better ratio. But I really like having all the different attributes in the deck just so we get more synergy with the Dragon Rulers that we have. So 2 copies of Kitchen I find to be very good. Finally, the last Dragonmaid in this build is Nurse Dragonmaid. I don't run Laundry at all. Laundry is just a bit of a risk with her milling effect. I don't find her to be particularly good, so I definitely recommend running 1 copy of Nurse over any copies of Laundry. Having said that, Nurse can also be cut as well if you want to, but I really like having it because her unique effect is if this card is normal or special summoned, you can target 1 level 4 or lower Dragonmaid monster in the graveyard. The reason why I find this to be so powerful is because we actually have a few link monsters in the extra deck as well. So if we're kind of like going into a bit of the longer game, if we're in turn 3 or 4 or whatever, Nurse can be really good to special summon off of Sheou, and then when Nurse is special summoned, she can special summon another smaller Dragonmaid from your graveyard as well, which gets all their effects and also can be good for going into your link places too. So Nurse I find to be really good to run at 1, and also the fact that she's an Earth is really good synergy with Redox too. I'm going to speed through the hand traps now. 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is absolutely great for the build. Most is a universal hand trap, and of course it's a fire, so it goes well with Blaster too. I know it's fire format, so a lot of people aren't main decking Ash Blossom, but I still think Ash Blossom is essential for all the other rogue decks. Like even against branded, it can be absolutely crippling when timed correctly. So 3 copies of Ash Blossom I find to be really good for the build. 3 copies of Ghost Belle in Haunted Mansion. Ghost Belle is a really good hand trap, especially this format considering how prominent Snake Eyes is. I would recommend you definitely main deck this. One thing you'll notice about all these hand traps is that they all have an attribute related to one of the Dragon Rulers. Not only do they serve the purpose of being just a really good hand trap, but also they synergize as well with the Dragon Rulers in the build too in order to get their effects to pop off. So 3 copies of Ghost Belle, great hand trap, and it synergizes with Redox. 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, an absolutely great hand trap, and also the wind attribute to work well with Tempest. If you want to change this last hand trap with something else, I don't mind at all, but I find Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood to be really good. Not only do I run it because it is a water attribute, so it synergizes a lot with Tidal, but I think it's also just a pretty funny hand trap too. For those of you who don't know what Spooky Dogwood does, is that it's a hand trap, so you can quick effect discard to the graveyard anytime except during the end phase, and then this effect applies. Each time your opponent special summons an effect monster during the main phase or battle phase, you gain life points equal to that monster's attack, which is really good because when you activate this, of course your opponent's going to be special summoning. It's nothing new. You're instantly going to be gaining life points, which not only is really good if we're going for a longer game, but also the fact that if we're going for time, this just really helps us out. The only downside of this is that if you don't gain any life points by this effect, your life points are half during the end phase, which the only deck that this would be really bad matchup against is decks like Belle, because all the monsters they summon out have like 0 attack and defense. But that really doesn't matter because Belle is pretty much a rogue, and I think Belle will be rogue for the upcoming format anyways. So 2 copies of Spooky Dogwood would definitely be really good for all the other matchups too. So I run 2 copies in this build. Going into the spells now, 1 copy of the fusion spell, which is Dragonmaid Changeover. This is just a basic fusion spell, but as I told you earlier, it has the effect that it's in the graveyard. You can target 1 Dragonmaid monster on the field, bounce it back to your hand, and add Changeover to your hand, which is really good when you're pairing with Parlor, and also it's just really good for recycling itself, so 1 copy is more than enough for what you need. 1 copy of Dragonmaid Hospitality. Hospitality is a pretty decent extender if you're kind of stuck in a situation. We don't use it an awful lot. In fact, it's probably like the last Dragonmaid spell or trap we'll be searching off of Chamber, but I still think it has a purpose in this deck. Hospitality says you can special summon 1 Dragonmaid monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position, and then you can send 1 Dragonmaid monster with the same attribute but a different level from your deck to the graveyard, which can be really good for graveyard setup, but most of the time it's just an extender if your original normal summon of a Dragonmaid kind of gets negated or whatever. So 1 copy of Hospitality is all we need. Run 1 copy of Gold Sarcophagus. I think it's definitely really good. Gold Sarc is limited, so we can only run it at 1, but it has the effect that you can banish 1 card from your deck face up, and then during the second standby phase, after this card's activation, you can add that card to the hand. Not only is this good because Dragonmaids aren't really a big OTK deck or anything like that, so most of the time you are kind of going into turns 3 and 4. The reason why I think Gold Sarc has really good synergy with this deck is again because of the Dragon Rulers. The Dragon Rulers has their effect to search a dragon monster with the same attribute as themselves when they're banished. So having Gold Sarc in this in order to get that effect to pop off, I find to be really good. Good way to search for combo starters. So 1 copy of Gold Sarc. The deck can definitely do with a bit more draw power, so run 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Pot of Prosperity is just a really good way to dig further into your deck. We don't rely too much on the extra deck in this build, so if you want to go with the budget alternative of Extravagance, that's absolutely fine. But Prosperity is just a better card overall, so I definitely recommend running it. Now, 3 copies of Super Poly. Super Poly is just an insane card. It's really great going against no matter what the deck. We have all the targets in the extra deck, so I definitely recommend that you run Super Poly at 3. That's also kind of the reason why we run Prosperity, is because we don't want to banish our Super Poly targets. We want to actually make sure they remain in our extra deck when we use Super Poly, so that's why you run Prosperity over Extravagance, and 3 copies of Super Poly in the main 2. And 1 copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave, not only is it able to help us get through with our combos uninterrupted, but it can also just be a really crippling card to your opponent too. So 1 copy is all you need. 2 copies of Dragonmaid Tidying. You don't need to run a playset, 2 is absolutely fine. Dragonmaid Tidying, of course, is searchable off a chamber and it has the effect that you can target 1 dragon monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls, or in their graveyard and return them to the hand. This not only is really good for some decent interruption, but Tidying also has a second effect that you can banish this card from the graveyard and special summon 1 Dragonmaid monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position, but return to the hand during the end phase. Which, of course, is just really good at getting some of your Dragonmaid plays going. So 2 copies of Dragonmaid Tidying, essential for the build. Now, rounding things off, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Arguably the best hand trap in the game. I think it's just really important. I think that this build is definitely more of a control sort of build more than anything else. So Imperm is just really good hand trap that not only can we use to interrupt our opponent during their turn, if we're able to set it in the back row, on activation, it just negates spells and traps in the same column, which can be really crippling to your opponent too. So 3 copies of Imperm rounds off this deck. Going into the extract now, 2 copies of Dragonmaid Sheou. Sheou you're able to go into by using 1 Dragonmaid monster and 1 level 5 or higher dragon monster. Reason why that's so important is because all of your dragon rulers are level 7, so you have no problem having a level 5 or higher dragon monster in order to go into Sheou. Sheou is really good though, because during each of the standby phases, you can special summon 1 level 9 or lower Dragonmaid monster from your hand and or graveyard, which I find to just be really cool at having your Dragonmaids always live, and you don't necessarily have to rely on normal summoning all the time. Sheou also has a quick effect that when your opponent activates a card or an effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Also, after that, return this card to your extra deck, and if you do, special summon 1 House Dragonmaid from your extra deck, which is just a really good Omni negate. And because we run 2 copies of Sheou, we also run 2 copies of House Dragonmaid. House Dragonmaid isn't just serving the purpose of being in this deck because you need her in the extra deck in order to get Shou's negate to fully activate. But also House Dragonmaid has another effect which is really good, which when another face-up dragon monster you control returns to the hand, except during the damage step, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls and destroy it. That's really good because that effect is not once per turn, so you can actually have a few pops off of that, but also the fact that a lot of our Dragonmaids, they bounce back to the hand anyways during the end of the battle phase. It's really good to get a few pops, but also some of our Dragon Rulers, when they're brought out in a certain way, they return to the hand during the end phase. So if you have Dragon Rulers to return to the hand during the end phase, House can get a pop off of that as well. So 2 copies of House Dragonmaid too. We also run the 3 Super Poly targets: Starving Venom, Fusion Dragon, Mud Dragon the Swamp, Garura. All very important to run this build. Of course, we main deck Super Poly, so it's really important to have targets for that Super Poly. 1 copy each, very important. What's unique to this deck is we run Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. I think Vortex Dragon is just really good. We go into them by using our Dragon Rulers to rank 7 into Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. So I'll just run by this real quick. So Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, you'd need 2 level 7 monsters in order to go into them, i.e. just our Dragon Ruler monsters. So Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon has the effect that when any player's monster declares an attack, you detach one material from this card, negate the attack, and then you can special summon one Odd Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard, which of course never really comes up. However, the effect of Absolute Dragon that if this Xyz summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Odd Eyes monster from your extra deck, except for Absolute Dragon, which most likely will be your Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. What's really important about this is that the card just says if this Xyz summon card is sent to the graveyard. So there's a lot of ways you can just send your cards to the graveyard in order to bring out your Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, which is just really good. That's really the only way you're able to go into your Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, which I find to be really good anyways. So Vortex Dragon reads that when this card is special summoned, you can target one opponent's face-up attack position monsters and return to the hand. That's really good. It synergizes as well with House Dragonmaid in order to get another pop. But not only that, it's also just really good at having as many dragons as possible in this build, because it really synergizes well with the Dragon Rulers that are able to revive themselves by banishing dragons and or monsters of the same attribute. So one copy of Absolute Dragon and Vortex Dragon I find to be really good for this deck. I also run one copy of Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. Flare Metal Dragon is just really good. 2 level 7s, i.e. your Dragon Rules in order to go into them. It cannot be destroyed by card effects while it has Xyz material, which is just really good. And while this card has Xyz material, each time your opponent activates a card or effect, you inflict 500 damage to your opponent immediately after it resolves. So it's really good at burning your opponent, really oppressing them for life points. I definitely recommend running one copy. Because it's Dragon Rulers, I really wanted to run Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosack. Dracosack may not be the best rank 7, but I still think he's very good and serves a purpose. If we're kind of going into a slow game where we want to just survive, I think he's really good at doing that. So I think it's really good to run him at one copy. I would absolutely say though, if Arise Heart was not banned, that would be the rank 7 you'd be playing instead of Dracosack. But for the time being, Dracosack is definitely played at 1 in this build. Final rank 7 in this build is number 11 Big Eye. Just takes 2 level 7 monsters and has the effect that once per turn you can attach one material from this card, then target one monster your opponent controls, take control of that monster. This card cannot attack the turn this effect is activated, which is absolutely fine. Most of the time we're just taking it in order for using it for our link plays or whatever. So one copy of Big Eye, definitely really good. Rounding things off with the links, we have 2 copies of Redox Seal of Heavenly Spheres. This is just a staple for all dragon decks really. Redox Seal of Heavenly Spheres needs 2 dragon monsters in order to go into it. Has the effect that once per opponent's turn, if this card in the extra monster zone, you can quick effect, tribute one monster from your hand or field and return one face-up card in the field to the hand. And if this card is tributed, you can special summon one dragon monster from your hand or deck, but makes the attack and defense 0. Which is really good because not only is it disruption, but also it gets our Dragonmaids out from the deck in order to get their effects going. So 2 copies of Heavenly Spheres I find to be really good. And rounding us off, 1 copy of Unicorn. I just think Unicorn is just a really good staple no matter what deck you're putting it in. I definitely recommend you run it. Now going into the side deck, I like to run Kaijus in pretty much all my side decks no matter what. And this is the one time I find having Kaiju in the side deck to be quite unique. But the reason why we're able to run any of them is just because of the attributes have synergy with the Dragon Rulers as well. You can actually throw in Gamma Seal as well, which actually might be a better option. It really depends on what way you build this deck. If you want to kind of have a main focus on either one of the Dragon Rulers, you can run either one of the Kaijus instead to make a full playset in the side deck. I like to run 1 copy of each of these just because I find to be they're the strongest. But the reason why I like to run a variety of them is if we side deck all 3 of them in and we open 2 Kaijus, what we're able to do is just summon one to our opponent's side of the field, and then we can summon the bigger one to our side as well, which I find to just be really good. So definitely find a way, whatever your preference is, to fill 3 slots for Kaijus of the different attributes that go well with your Dragon Rulers. Next up, 3 copies of Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. This is just a really good card, and the fact that it's a hand trap that's also a dragon is just absolutely great. So if your opponent special summons a link monster, you can special summon this card from your hand and then draw cards equal to the number of link monster your opponent controls +1. Then shuffle cards from your hand into the deck equal to the number of link monsters they control, which is really good. Some of the top decks use a lot of link monsters now, like for example, Snake Eyes use a lot of link monster with their Princess, IP Masquerena, and etc. But it also has the effect that when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a monster you control, you can quick effect discard one card, negate the activation. If you do, destroy it. So that's another reason why I think Phantasmate is just really good. I definitely think it's a better side deck option. I wouldn't really be main decking this, but I definitely run at 3 on the side. 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. This deck is definitely lacking spell and trap removal, and Cosmic Cyclone is definitely the best form of spell and trap removal this format, so I definitely recommend running 3 copies in the side. 3 copies of Dark Ruler no more. This is in case we're forced to go second and we need some board breakers in order to survive going second, so I definitely recommend running a playset in the side deck. Finally, rounding things off, 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Another amazing board breaker. If we have to go second, definitely side this in. If you're pairing this with Dark Ruler no more, you can't go wrong. Definitely 3 copies of Evenly Matched in the side. So that about does it for the build. I'm really happy to see Tidal back, and I'm really happy with the way this deck turned out. It's definitely shaping up really well. When the Dragon Rulers come to a position where they can be unlimited, you might be able to switch around some of the ratios to kind of figure out ways to work better. But I'm really happy with the state it is right now in order we're able to play 1 copy of each Dragon Rulers. It's definitely really cool to see these cards resurge in popularity. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave suggestions and feedback in the comments. Sean and I would definitely love to hear what you guys think. We have plenty of other profiles on the channel and loads more content on the way, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. See you next time. Bye bye.